Milliards!
It's an odd time to be a fan of animation. On one hand, great animation is being produced more now than ever. I'm blessed to be surrounded by so much art from my favorite medium. On the other hand, it's weird to stand by as the studio that's been pioneering the art form for centuries now are spitting in its face. It's not an exaggeration when I say that Disney, the studio that once utilized the art form of animation to become big, is now using all of their resources to do what effectively is the opposite of animation. Gone are the expressions. Gone are the colors. Gone is the heart. On the top of that, in spite of living in 2019, we still insist that animation is somehow inferior to live action movies. It's embarrassingly placed in the corner, a category of its own, next to the big boys. Humiliatingly put in a box named Kids Only. And I am sick of it. I need a palate cleanser. Yeah, that should do it.
Impossible, see the invisible. Row, fight the power. Crush the untouchable, break the unbreakable. Row, fight the power. What you gonna do is what you wanna do. Just break the rules they use.
Oh Japan, in a world where hand-drawn animation is dying out, I can always count on you to deliver the best of the best of the very best. I enjoy watching new anime as much as the next guy, but sometimes it's just nice to revisit some of the classics. And what a classic! Gurren Lagann, or Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, is an adventurous and action-packed anime from GAINAX, the studio behind animated titans like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Fooly Cooly, and many more. Its style of animation has become so characteristic for director HIROYUKI IMAISHI, it's prompted him to direct multiple anime with the same amount of fun and hyperbole with the likes of Kill la Kill, Panty and Stocking, and PROMARE. But today I don't want to deal with the small fry, it's all about the big one. Sure, it's been over a decade since its release, and sure, it might not be relevant, but the YouTube videos I tend to love the most are not the most contemporary, but the ones made with passion, and this right here is what I'm passionate about at the moment. So I am gonna go ahead and cover 3 reasons that will pierce the heavens and express as clear as day why Gurren Lagann is the masterpiece that I think it is. A few years ago, I used to do this thing where I would watch the first couple of episodes of every new anime. You know what I noticed? A crazy amount of them open the same way, with narration, an unknown voice explaining to me what type of world I'm about to embark. I gotta tell you, that got pretty old and boring pretty fast. It's a great example of the good old show don't tell. In Gurren Lagann, we experience the world and put the pieces together with the characters. Yeah, and before you say anything, I know that Gurren Lagann has a narrator as well, but he doesn't exist for the purpose of exposition. He alludes to plot points and basically gets us pumped for the episodes. He feels more like a character in the show, someone who is with us along the way. The story cleverly begins with our favorite duo, Simone and Kamina, living underground beneath the surface. They are literally starting from the bottom, and we are right there with them when they reach the surface, or when they encounter gunmen, or when they discover what they are capable of. It's a tried and true narrative tool that works with the strengths of the show. It tells the story through the characters, not to them. There is never a character that just stops the momentum of the episodes in order to explain to you why things are the way that they are. The first 3 episodes of the show stand tall as some of the best examples of visual storytelling I've ever seen in anime. But don't get me wrong, the characters are not just placeholders, empty shells for us, the viewers, to insert ourselves into. They don't just react to the things happening around them, they act. The reason why they escape from the bottom layer in the first episode is because Simon finds a treasure and cannot help himself to see what it can do. The reason why they have a fighting chance against the Beastmen is because Kamina sees an opportunity where the rebels only saw futility and steals a gunman. In summation, you should watch Gurren Lagann if you want to dive into a whole new world with all the fun and none of the exposition. Okay, Okay, so I know that the title, characters and story is incredibly generic, but we have to talk about this. While the characters in Gurren Lagann may not be Shakespearean per se, they're still pretty great. You see, there is this thing called stereotypes and archetypes, i.e. categorization of characters based off of their traits, and I think it's a huge problem with today's stories that characters never really escape the comforting confines of their archetypes. That is just not the case with Gurren Lagann. You could say that Simone is timid and Kamina is a hothead, but that is not all that they are. The archetype that you could place upon their characters does not dictate how they act. These characters can be scared, happy, goofy, serious, fierce, and so much more. They have moments where they are annoying, petty, and ungrateful. Rather than embody the handful of emotions typically associated with a simple stereotype, these characters exhibit all manner of emotions, making them feel real and relatable. There's one scene where Yoko is trying to fight together with Kamina instead of Simone, and it's very obvious that she's just being jealous of all the attention that Simone is getting. She acts immature, and it's good. There is another scene where in the middle of a giant battle, the enemies begin having a heartfelt moment where one saves another, and that is great. These little character moments really work for me. I love when characters feel wholesome and vivid. A huge contrast to this kind of characterization would be something like Fate's Stay Night. I remember watching Unlimited Blade Works and thinking that all these characters felt very stale. Don't get me wrong, they were all written with different personalities, motivations, and so on, but it's like they had this filter of self-importance covering them. Even when they're flustered or snarky, they look conceited. Even when they're just goofing around, being teenagers, they seem serious, held back. I tend to gravitate towards characters that are vibrant and expressive. Shows like Cowboy Bebop, Space Dandy, Escaflowne, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Mob Psycho, and of course Gurren Lagann are compelling because they combine earnest and relatable characteristics with expressive and cartoony art styles. Let's talk a bit about the story. What's really awesome here is that Gurren Lagann manages to do what a ton of long-running shonen manga attempt to do in the span of a measly 27 episodes. It creates a fully fledged narrative filled to the brim with an expansive world and a plethora of characters. What it doesn't have in episode count, it makes up for in iconic moments and constant implications that these characters and their world matter. I adore the way everything connects in this show. The way Kamina's character dies in episode 8 but stays in spirit for the rest of the series. The way the Spiral King is introduced as an evil final boss and evolves into a character with history and depth. The way humanity being trapped underground all connects to the Spiral Force. The way Simone evolves and grows. The way Yoko becomes a teacher for the new generation. It's meticulous and I love it. No matter how much of a cliche it is, I cannot and will not avoid talking about the animation and sound design of Gurren Lagann. Let's cover the basics. Gurren Lagann is produced with consistently high quality animation with plenty of frames to spare. It's got a vibrant color palette and a beautiful sense of shading. If the animation isn't up to par, the show will utilize a more simple style with still frames for comedic effect. So even when it's bad, it is good. Normally I would criticize a show for using still frames in the middle of action scenes, but even the still frames of Gurren Lagann packs major punches. The style in of itself is incredibly energetic with a huge focus on expression and movement. One particular thing I adore about the animation is how it sometimes looks like a pencil is being smashed into the paper, leaving little bits and pieces on the screen. It looks frantic, almost violent. I don't think it's an understatement to say that Gurren Lagann belongs in the highest league when it comes to televised 2D animation, sometimes easily beating the quality of feature films. Then there is the music, and like, how do I approach this? The score of Gurren Lagann is insane. It seems that in order to match the expressive and gratuitous tone of the show, they threw as many different genres of music as they could into the production. Sometimes it's nu metal, other times it's classical cinema scores, rap chants, opera, or J-pop insert songs. What combines all of these genres is the use of leitmotifs and a consistent intention of hyping the shit out of every every set piece. To sum up, the aesthetic of Gurren Lagann is not just top tier, it also aids the themes and the narrative. So yeah, Gurren Lagann is spectacular. Go watch it if you already have. Rewatch it. Put that bad boy on your anime list and give it an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10. It's that good. But I must be honest, there is an elephant in the room. So let's point out the one fatality of Gurren Lagann. In this next segment, I would like to call These 4 episodes shows us the world after the time skip. Unlike other episodes that focus on Simone, Carmina or Yoko, these focus on Rossio. These episodes develops Rossio into an antithesis of Simone. Both Simone and Rossio are willing to sacrifice people in order to prevail and survive, each in their own way of course. However, while Simone always fights for progress and a brighter tomorrow, Rossio fights for regression, much like other characters in the show. In other words, Simone wants to fight the enemy, no matter how risky, while Rossio wants to return the public underground to save them with minimal risk. This parallel is delivered to us through 4 tedious episodes that honestly doesn't feel much like Gurren Lagann. They feel much more like episodes out of another more politically driven mech show like a Code Geass or Alnoa Zero. There is a lot of characters walking around in a generic sci-fi environment. Actually calling it generic might be a bit rough, but compared to the visuals of the first 16 episodes, it's really hard not to use that word. I've heard the argument that these episodes are supposed to be different in order to create contrast and maybe even make the final episodes that much more satisfying. And I don't disagree with that. On text, it works. As I've already said, Rossio serves as a great counterpoint to Simone. He also gets a great redemption at the end. The problem for me lies in the execution of these 4 episodes. They simply lack the expressionism and excitement that makes the show work. At least for me, they do. No matter the course, no matter the intention, I still find myself wanting to skip them every time I rewatch the show. It's not enough to destroy the show, not even one bit, but it is worth mentioning. Oh, and I know that other YouTubers much bigger and better than I have been analyzing Rossio to great depth, and I agree with most points made, especially by Best Guy Ever. I agree that Rossio is part of the spiral of people trying to protect Earth using the means that they have at their disposal. Again, I think that these characters work splendidly on text. I just think that the 4 episodes in question distance themselves too much from the elements that makes the show work, rendering them kind of jarring. Sorry, Rossio. The only other issues I can think of comes in the shape of episode 4, 5 and 6. They're not awful by any means, they're just drastically inferior to the first 3, which are, honestly, kind of perfect. Episode 4 features guest director OSAMU Kobayashi, and is kind of an unsuccessful attempt at experimenting with the style of the show, rendering it the equivalent to a Roadrunners cartoon, in a bad way. The 5th episode introduces Rossio and is in no way, shape or form bad, it's just kind of a dreary episode comparatively spoken. The 6th episode, which I believe is a special episode in some cases, is the bathhouse episode. Most anime has an extra episode somewhere in the mix, usually in between story arcs, where the characters just kind of goof around in a hot spring. For some reason this episode came early on in this show, which detracts a bit from the overall adventure. But none of that changes the fact that Gurren Lagann is a splendid show, top of the charts easily. At the end of the day, much like the spiral motif that the show keeps emphasizing, every part of the anime flows together to reach greater heights. The aggressive visuals, the heart-pounding music, the epic narrative, the detours, the characters, the moments, sad, glad, tender, they all work in tandem to express the theme of human perseverance. When the last episode is over and we get a glimpse of what the world of Gurren Lagann looks like years into the future, we are shown an intricate sci-fi world filled with bright neon technocolors. In other words, humanity won't stop inventing and evolving. The ending doesn't revolve around any specific character. It doesn't revolve around Carmina or Simone or Yoko or even Rossio. It revolves around humanity and the world that we live in. It revolves around the notion, the idea that no matter what happens, no matter the obstacle, no matter how dark the situation looks, no matter how many sacrifices has to be made, humanity must continue to look up and strive onward. There's also a more obvious theme of willpower and how it's humanity's strongest weapon, capable of overcoming any hindrance. Admittedly, that message might come off as naive to some viewers. After all, when hardship happens in real life, surely willpower won't always be enough. But that's not what Gurren Lagann is teaching us. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Simone isn't just using willpower to solve every little problem. Kamina dies, Nia dies, Kitan dies. But in spite of those losses, Simone kept pressing onward, and he grew stronger for it. And that is the show telling us that if we keep fighting, even when bad things happen, there's at least a chance something good will come out of it. In that sense, the one thing that Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann gives me more than anything else is hope. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and sorry about that awkward transition. I would have played the song out, but copyright is a bitch. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. It really is the best way to support what I'm doing here. Stay nice in the comment section and take care until the next video.